So what all we are going to discuss, last class also we tried to discuss brief, I tried to summarize what we are going to discuss. Again, no need to worry, we'll discuss again. So what all we are going to discuss is why in India before Britishers we did not see the emergence of middle class. First point means what are the factors which led to emergence of middle class during British invasion. Okay, first. Second question, what else we'll be discussing is, in this topic we are also going to discuss about the very important point is, we are talking about so many middle classes. We are talking about so many classes in India. But when we are talking about middle class in India, did middle class only emerged in India, or did middle class also emerge in Western countries? If British occupation, British invasion of India is leading to the rise of middle class in Western countries, what led to the rise of middle class? So tomorrow this might be also question. రాలేదు ఇప్పటి వరకు, బట్ జనరల్గా ఏంటి అంటే అదే చెప్తున్నాను చూడండి, యూపీఎస్సి ఎంత ఎలా ఆలోచిస్తుంది అంటే, ఒకటే ఆలోచిస్తుంది యూపీఎస్సి, జనాలు వేరే ఎవరో చెప్తే సోషాలజీ చదువుతున్నారా, వాళ్ళు చదువుకుందాం అని చదివితే సోషాలజీ చదువుతున్నారా అంటే అర్థమైందా? నేను మీకు సోషాలజీ చెప్తున్నాను కాబట్టి మీరు చదువుతున్నారు, మీకు నేర్చుకోవాలని ఉంది సోషాలజీ కాబట్టి మీరు నేర్చుకుంటారు. చాలా డిఫరెన్స్ ఉంది. మీరు నేర్చుకోవాలని సోషాలజీ అనుకున్నారనుకోండి, మీ సొంతంగా నేర్చుకోవాలనుకున్నారనుకోండి, మీరు అడుగుతారు, సార్ మిడిల్ క్లాస్ చెప్తున్నాడు, మిడిల్ క్లాస్ చెప్పడం వల్ల మాకు వాట్ ఈస్ ద పాయింట్ ఆఫ్ డిస్కసింగ్ మిడిల్ క్లాస్? వై యూపీఎస్సీ has included syllabus of middle class in sociology, and where it included? It is talking about it is talking about social structure of Indian society. In social structure it is talking about middle class. Why in social structure it is the topic of middle class is included? Okay, why only in middle class is been included in paper 2? Why not middle class in paper 1? Yes, in paper 1 also we talked about middle class. Okay, so అదే చెప్తున్నాను, కంపారిజన్ బిట్వీన్ మిడిల్ క్లాస్ ఇన్ యూరోపియన్ సొసైటీస్ అండ్ ఇండియన్ సొసైటీస్. So that also can be a prospective question. So what factors contributed to the rise of middle classes in India and also in Western countries? So this is the second question which we have to look in this chapter when we are talking about middle class. Okay, now what is the third question? Now Britishers led to Britishers invasion. When British made India as a colony, then we see emergence of middle class. Next, the immediate question is, did this middle class undergo any changes? If it did undergo, what are the changes? What are all the changes? So just UPSC మిడిల్ క్లాస్ అని ఇచ్చింది సిలబస్ లో, మనం ఏం చేసాము అంటే మిడిల్ క్లాస్ అనే టాపిక్ ఎందుకు ఇచ్చింది, ఆ టాపిక్ నుంచి ఏమేం క్వశ్చన్స్ రావచ్చు అని టాపిక్ ముందే మనం if we just ponder about it, then all you have to do is, when it comes to UPSC, all you have to do is you have to be one step ahead your competitors. How you are going to be one step ahead in your competitors? This is how you are going to be. This is how you have to be ahead. వాళ్ళు చదివేది అదే బుక్స్, మీరు చదివేది అదే బుక్స్, వాళ్ళు వినేది ఇవే క్లాసెస్. ఓకే, ఎవరైనా ఇవే క్లాసెస్ వింటారు. బట్ వాట్ మేక్స్ difference in the way people become successful and in the way some people become successful, only few people will become successful, is the perspective, the way through which they study. Okay, so let us understand these topic of middle class in social classes. Let us understand these questions and thereby let us become well versed with this topic of middle class. Okay, chalo now let us move ahead with the first question. So the first question is, why in India before Britishers we did not see the emergence of middle class? Okay, why in India before the Britishers? Now, first of all, like as already we have discussed in paper 1, what are middle classes? That is the reason why I'm not going into details, but let us briefly discuss about middle class also. What is a middle class? How do you characterize the middle class? How do you characterize a middle class? How do you characterize a middle class? Working class, you can say working class, but there is also an industrial class. You have to, the syllabus lo industrial class kuda undi kada. Next, there have to be a difference between working class and middle class. See, this is how you have to come to a proper understanding of the topic which we are discussing. So continuously keep on asking questions. Okay, చెప్పండి, మిడిల్ క్లాస్, వర్కింగ్ క్లాస్ అన్నారు, వర్కింగ్ క్లాస్. See, middle class, you can say it is a, when the question itself is saying that emergence of middle class means you have to understand that a new wave of ideas is shaping society. New wave of ideas, and these ideas might be like political ideas. These ideas might be intellectual ideas. These ideas might be political ideas. These ideas might be social ideas. These ideas might be economical ideas. If this is what makes middle class and industrial class difference. If it is economic ideas, if at all we see capitalist ideas are shaping, then it will become industrial class. Okay, but along with capitalist ideas, along with entrepreneurship, along with capitalism, we see other ideas are also taking shape. Then we will be all those characteristics, we will be summing it as a middle class. That's it, simple. So this is how you have to think, this is how you have to understand about middle class. Now let me tell you, when we are talking about, we discussed this about French Revolution. French Revolution led to the birth of so many ideas in the world: liberty, equality, fraternity. To a certain context, these ideas which is influencing Western societies, this led to these ideas consolidated into the formation of middle class. That is the reason why you see in Western societies, we see first estate and second estates were questioned by bourgeoisie class of third estate, and this led to gradual changing of political structure in French. Okay, next political structure, next economic structure, social structure. Okay, so now we gradually are understanding, we are going to second topic of the discussion, second question in discussion. We are seeing that in Western societies middle class has been shaped through enlightenment, through Renaissance, through all those revolutions which we talked about, industrial revolution, all these things. We summed up those as an enlightenment period or Renaissance. Okay, so Renaissance led to the birth of middle class. Now, but in India, what we are seeing is colonial rule is leading to the emergence of middle class. Okay, now you understand my point? Now, when this, you briefly have discussed about second topic. What is the difference between middle class in West and in India? And that is also the reason why you see in West we will be saying that like in West because of external factors, external influence. Okay, so middle class has been shaped. In India because of internal factors, we see led to the emergence of middle class. That we'll see when we go into detail. Now, did this middle class undergo any change? Yes, this middle class have also underwent change. There was old middle class and new middle class. Old middle class emerged during the impact of British rule, but new middle class emerged post 1990 LPG reforms. Okay, so now you have to understand that middle class is not just about changes in economic structure. Middle class will, to summarize, middle class will does include lifestyle changes, it does include cultural changes, it does include the changes in the ideas, it does include the changes in the status of individuals. Okay, so these all things sums up as middle class. Okay, now you understood. Now let us move forward. So in India, to answer all these questions in detail, now in India what happened was, before Britishers, you know, the social and political structure in India was in such a way, social and political structure in India was in such a way which was not encouraging capitalism, which was not encouraging innovation. To for the rise of capitalism, you need to focus on investment. But before Britishers, you have, if you look at the political structure in India, you see kings were enjoying a vast amount of properties, and kings were focusing on lavish life. They were focusing on consumerism, but kings were not interested in, were not focused on reinvestment. When Karl Marx talked about feudal mode of production, manor system law, masters were interested in accumulation of wealth, rather, but masters were not interested in reinvestment. The same thing wasn't that same happening in Indian society? Okay, everything in India before Britishers used to take place in the name of king. So everything, the property was in the name of king. That is the reason why we saw in like evolution of land tenure system, Todormal system also. Land was in the name of king. Okay, so when the land was in the name of king, so land was a property of king, and people did not have any property of their own. When they don't have the property of their own, from where would their motivation arise to focus on their accumulation of profits? Okay, because everything was in the name of king. Now you're understanding the political structure which is restricting the emergence of middle class. Now, after Britishers, what happens? We see land has become gradually. We see land shifted from state to people, to zamindars. Now, when people realized that we could become the landowners, we could have a property of their own, at the end of the day, the aspirations would grow. Now, very important, whenever you talk about middle class, okay, you have to understand, this is a cheat code through which you have to understand about middle class. What is the cheat code? We all are middle class. Okay, what are the attributes we share in common? Although we come from different backgrounds, but one attribute which we share in common was aspirations. Aspirations is one which is driving us move forward. Aspiration is one which is making us move towards success. That is the reason why whenever I discuss about middle class, I always say this to my students: middle class mentality, middle class aspirations is or has shaped what India today is. And middle class aspirations only will shape what you are going to be in the future. Middle class aspirations is what going to shape you. That is the reason why I always say to my students, never ever be contented in life when it comes to chasing goals. You have to be contented in life when it comes to material needs, but when it comes to dreams, you should never be contented. Middle class are never contented. They always aspire. That is the reason why, listen, that is the reason why this middle class always undergo changes. We also say between old middle class and new middle class, Yogendra Singh talked about rural middle class and urban middle class. So this aspirations is one. So you have to see British has brought some changes, and that changes led to some structural changes in the Indian society, and this also led to imbibing aspirations, inculcating aspirations in individuals, and that led to formation of middle class. సో ఎప్పుడైనా గుర్తుపెట్టుకోండి, చాలా మంది స్టూడెంట్స్ నన్ను కూడా అడుగుతారు, సార్ లైక్ జాబ్ చేసుకుంటూ ప్రిపేర్ అవ్వాలా అని. నేనేమంటాను అంటే, నువ్వు జాబ్ చేసుకుంటూ ప్రిపేర్గా, జాబ్ చేసుకోకుండా ప్రిపేర్గా, నువ్వు సక్సెస్ అయ్యేది మాత్రం జాబ్ ఉండడం, జాబ్ లేకపోవడం వల్ల కాదు. ఓన్లీ థింగ్ ఈస్ ఇఫ్ యూ బికమ్ కంటెంటెడ్ విత్ జాబ్, ఐఎమ్ ఎర్నింగ్ దిస్ మచ్ ఆఫ్ అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ మనీ, then you are contented. You will become far away. You will be traveling far away from your goal. That is what. Why you see India, whenever you see, మీరు చూడండి, whatever is happening in front of our eyes, is nothing but it is because of middle class. Narendra Modi government have changed GST rates from 18% to 5%. Is because he want to promote the consumeristic, he want to promote the expenditure amongst middle class. Okay, so India is built, the structure of Indian society is very much built on middle class. Majority of the taxpayers are middle class. Okay, majority of the people who are shaping India future is built by middle class. Now what is common amongst middle class is that aspirations. So this is, I always use this as an opportunity when I was discussing about middle class to say that there is so much of relation between an aspirant's life in UPSC journey and the mindset of middle class. Mindset of middle class is what makes you become successful. That is the reason why you see majority of the inventions in the world came from middle class mindsets. Majority of the successful people tomorrow, the future will also be shaped by middle class. Okay, so that is a philosophical perspective of middle class. Now we have to discuss about sociological perspective of middle class. So, but one thing is clear, like until and unless that aspirations is not there, okay, then you becoming successful, it will be decreasing. So make sure that you focus on that aspect.